record to the cloud. So we're now recording to the cloud. I'm going to go ahead and make Donald the host. So now he's in control. I'll just do a quick introduction. They were really happy to have another one of our Math Alliance predoctoral scholars, Isaac Harris, with us to tell us about his experience. He's going to be interviewed by our interviewer of choice, always, who is Professor Donald Cole, emeritus from University of Mississippi, who is a heroic figure in the civil rights movement and deserves. We have to do some video on you at some point, Professor Cole. I've been thinking about that the last couple of days. And Isaac, who received his undergraduate degree at Kean University in New Jersey, his doctorate from the University of Delaware, did a postdoctoral appointment at Texas A&M, and now we're very proud that he's here with us at Purdue University, but we're also doubly proud of his connection with the Math Alliance. And so I will turn it over to Donald. As I understand it, if I leave, the recording will still go. I've actually tested this, by the way. The recording will still go on. So I'm going to leave the meeting, and you guys have your interview. And thank you again so much for doing this. It's just it's great for us.
I mean, thanks for asking. I appreciate it.
All right.
Can see it.
Take care.
Isaac, do I have audio and video?
Yes,
clear
I can
with
hear
you. You can hear me. Okay. You coming in loud and clear as well. Perfect. Thank you for doing this for sure.
Oh, of course.
And I wanted to ask a few questions of you, and so let you have free reign in answering them in any way that you want. Kind of give you a perspective and your experience that kind of brought you to the point in life where you are now. And so some of the questions would be pointed and some would be open-ended for you to respond. And the whole process shouldn't take quite an hour. So is that okay?
That's fine. Yeah, works.
Okay. All right. So we'll just kick this off. So if you will, we'll maybe start off. I'd like for you to give me a little mathematical chronicle of your life, to tell me where you're from, what undergraduate institution that you attended, and just kind of walk me through the early part of your life.
Yeah. So I'm originally from New Jersey. I lived there for all the way up until I went to graduate school. I got my bachelor's degree from Kean University. And when I went there, I was initially a math education major. I love mathematics, and I also do like teaching. I think, academic careers are kind of a three-legged stool, right? Research, teaching, and service. And I think a lot of people really focus on the research aspect, but I also do really like the teaching and service aspect. And so, I had this real intense love for mathematics and a real love for teaching. And so when I got involved in things like the Math Alliance and the McNair program, I didn't think of graduate school at the time. I just thought, you like mathematics, you go on to be a math teacher, maybe at a high school or middle school level. But once, I got involved in these excellent programs that kind of showed me that, there were other doors, there were other options, such as getting a PhD and, knowing that, I could still have my, teaching life that I did like to do. And also, this real robust mathematics career as well is how I started. And, programs like the Math Alliance, showed me that that was a possibility, that was even a thing that I could do that I didn't know of when I first got to my undergraduate institution.
Okay, thank you so very, very much. And I'm pleased to know that you are a McNair fellow. I don't think I ever knew that. I happen to be a McNair director myself.
Oh, very nice.
And it's a program that I'm very, very fond of. And I still, even though retired, I still work with it quite a bit. That's a great group. But today I want to ask you to expand a little bit on your experience with the Alliance, how you became involved. Maybe name me a couple of the players that you still remember being associated with it. And if you were to sit back and think and dream and the word alliance come up, what comes to mind?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. So at first, actually, speaking of being a McNair Scholar, I found out about the Math Alliance through being a McNair Scholar. I remember kind of my first interaction with the Math Alliance was the Field of Dreams conference. So I was already a McNair Scholar at the time, and I kind of, finally found out that graduate school was an option, and, was already thinking about, going and things like that. But then I went to the Field of Dreams conference. It was at the University of Iowa. I believe I went to the first one. I can't remember. I don't remember what year it was, but I believe it was, if not the first one of the first ones. And one thing that I kind of realized there, well, one thing I think I will say, being any type of minority in any field, it's good to see people that look like you and that can, share their stories and things like that. And that was really useful to learn from the Math Alliance. And one of the things that I saw, not just through the McNair program, but definitely through the Math Alliance was, hearing other people's stories and seeing, not just, African Americans, but a large diverse community of mathematicians, made the idea of going to graduate school, made the idea of becoming a professor something that seemed real, right? It may not have seemed so real if, everyone who is a professor looks like this and you don't, then, you kind of don't really see that ever happening. But that was one thing that I thought the Math Alliance did really well. And I think another thing is there are many paths that one can take when getting a PhD and afterwards. And so, normally when you talk, you learn about getting a PhD and stuff when you're in, college or graduate school or something. And, your advisors and things like that will tell you about how to get a PhD, about how to become a professor, about how to get an academic career started. But, most, the people that I knew from my time at King University, such as Dr. Bogues, who is was one of my McNair mentors there and is now the chair of the math department at King University. They know all about how to get an academic vision. They are excellent at, helping, and he helped me, throughout my undergrad and graduate career, honestly. But they're excellent at, kind of steering you towards, the thing that they know, which is an academic career. But one thing I saw at the, Field of Dreams was there wasn't just people there that said, okay, you go to graduate school and you get an academic job. They had people that worked in industry and in business and in governmental agencies. And they still have that at the Math Alliance Field of Dreams conference. Different career and job fairs that aren't, just University X or Y. It could be, NSA or different, organizations. And I think that's also useful as well, because you could, you might say, I do love the teaching and research aspect of an academic job, but people may love mathematics, but, the teaching part or the, intense research part may not be for them. And I think it does a very good service of not just, helping advance voices that may not always be heard in different areas of mathematics, but they also show you that, getting an academic, degree doesn't just put you in an academic box. You can do other things. And I thought that was something that was really useful. I remember at the first Field of Dreams conference I went to, one of the best talks I heard, or, panels that I went to was, there was a dean of a, business school that said, hey, if you're a math major, you should come get a PhD in economics, because, mathematics is used greatly in the field of business and economics and things like that. And, once again, getting, the fact that I could get a PhD in economics, even though I love math, was something that I didn't know about until I went to that conference. And I think that's a really good thing that they, service that they provide to, anyone who goes to the Field of Dreams conference.
Oh, thank you so much. Of course, I've made every one of the conferences and part of the planning committee. And so you just kind of verified us, because some of the things we were saying were exactly what we wanted to happen at the conference.
Yeah, and it comes through. I mean, I see it. It's definitely, yeah.
Yes, that's okay. Now, you have a PhD in mathematics.
Mm-hmm.
You
It's actually
must
sitting right
be,
there. That's the PhD.
you must be a genius. And
uh,
just respond to that.
well, as much as I would like to think I am, the answer to that is definitely not. I think it's a lot of, I think have to have a love of mathematics or any field that you are studying. And getting a PhD in it, I don't think for anyone means that you are a genius. I think that means that, it's a lot of hard work that you're willing to put in. Remember going to graduate school, there were lots of long nights and, staying up late on weekends and getting projects done and then, having to go teach my recitation session. And even now as a professor, it is a lot of, writing grants and having to jump on a, meeting with graduate students that you're working with and then write lecture notes for class. So, to get a PhD in anything, I think in any kind of academic setting, a lot of the things you need are skills that people already have. Time management, you got to stick with it. There are lots of times, even now, still to this day, I'm writing papers now. I'm moving a little bit more into numerical analysis, which is a kind of uses the same kind of, some of the same theory that I've been using throughout my mathematical career, but it's somewhat different. And I spend now, even to this day, I spend lots of days, reading through papers and books and scratching my head and not understanding what's happening until I realize that there's just one inequality that everybody knows that I don't, right? And then once you figure that out, it's just like, oh yes, that thing that's been bothering me for a month is just a simple inequality that everybody knows, and that's why I couldn't get the proof. And so, it's I think a lot of it is just a lot of skills that people, already inherently have, and it's just like, bearing down and going through that, and just, knowing that you can do it is going to be, if you go through a PhD program, there's going to be some, ups and downs. One thing I liked that I heard at one of the Field of Dreams conference during one of the panels, and everybody was in the room. And I guess during one of the plenary talks, they said, okay, all of the advisors and professors that are here, how many of you went through graduate school and, never thought that, you just sailed through it, thought everything was going great. And that, there were no troubles. You just went there, you just, jumped over every hurdle the first time and never were, rattled about anything. It asks people to raise their hand, and of course, no one raised their hand, right? There's always hurdles that you don't think you're gonna be able to jump over. There's always, tests and things that, are gonna keep you up at night. But a lot of it is just really just working hard and, one, you have to have a love. Like I said, we gotta have to love it because it is gonna be a lot of hard work. And, you are gonna be, like I said, even to this day, sometimes I'll be up at 2 a.m. coding up. So I'm trying to figure out why my code doesn't work, It's, if you're gonna be up at 2 a.m. trying to figure out why your code doesn't work, you might as well like it,
Yes, exactly. It wouldn't surprise me, Isaac, if I wasn't the one who was up on stage asking those professors to raise their hand. At any rate, I want to see if I could ask you something that's very personable as well. And if you feel comfortable in answering, okay. And if you don't, that's okay as well. But I want you to give me an instant or two in your life that was, certainly your mathematical life, that was fairly devastating for you. Periods of time for which you were just ready to throw up your hands, and how you might have overcome that. And vice versa, on the other end, some times of which you are very, very proud of in your mathematical career. So from one extreme to the other. Can you give me an instance or two and comment on those wide ranges of feelings?
Yes. I can do that. I'll start with the bad and I'll end on a good note. Okay. I think, so as David said, I did my postdoc at Texas A&M, and I did love it. I love being at Texas A&M. My postdoc mentor, Bill Rundell, there was amazing. But there were some times definitely where I had a lot of, maybe personal and professional things that weren't going, 100% my way. And so, I will say that, there are definitely going to be times where, things like professional life, I remember in graduate school, every paper that we submitted got accepted first round, barely any corrections. And I remember when I was at Texas A&M was the first time I ever had a paper rejected. And I was just, kind of like, I was just like, okay, well, I just didn't know that was my first experience at it. I believe I was the single author on the paper. So then it wasn't even like I had a collaborator or someone to kind of like talk to and think about, maybe where should we submit next or what should we do to change or augment the paper. And that got me really down because I was just like, okay, well, when I was in graduate school working with my advisor, everything got published, easy peasy. But now, what, do I really have the stuff here? And also, personal things get in the way as well. I mean,
Yes.
You can easily say, I was at Texas A&M and during that 2016 election, and so that was a little, that family stuff. There's always things that are gonna kick you, like put you down. One of the things I often do to try to understand that is to, talk to people and ask for help. And that's something that I learned more as, the older you get, the wiser you get. And, even just things like,
Hope so.
like even things like, if, back then when I had my first paper rejection, I almost just, didn't resubmit the paper. I almost just like said it was like garbage, a waste of time, just leave it and go on. But then I resubmitted it to another journal, made some edits, resubmitted, and then it got accepted, right away. And, I think there's things of just like, even if it is something like that, talking to someone, if it is like, oh, maybe a paper I'm a single author on or something doesn't get accepted, or a grant proposal doesn't get funded, I think one of the things you kind of have to pull yourself out of that is, talk to people, ask, what could I do different? What can maybe I change? Can you help me? Can you give me some advice? You really have to find those nice pockets of like, people that you can talk to. And, once again, bringing it back to the Math Alliance, there are lots of people that I met through the Math Alliance, through my jobs, at A&M, here at Purdue now, that I have now a good group. And obviously my time at Delaware, my PhD advisor, they get you through those times when, and there are also times where, maybe, things are going a little rough for you. Having people that you can talk to and help pull you out of that and let you say no, here's maybe what you need to change, and the proposal could get funded. And that's undeniably awesome resource for anyone, no matter what stage you are in your career. And I would say some of the good things that a really good point in time, I would say this past, I'm finished. This has been my second year here at Purdue, and obviously not everything has been, not every paper has been accepted and not every proposal has been funded. But I would say I've had amazing 2 years. I think I've been, if you ask me, I've been incredibly productive. I've been able to learn a lot and work on a lot of new and different problems on my own, and have been able to kind of come into my own as a researcher and trying to, figure out what kind of problems I want to look into, what I'm interested in, and things like that. This past couple of years at Purdue, I've been to a lot of conferences and things like that I've been invited to, which have been nice. Like I said, I've been very productive. And so I would say, high note of the career is just one, getting a job here at Purdue, accepting the offer, and all of the work I think that I've done. I think, like I said, this has been very productive 2 years for me. And even now under the COVID-19 crisis, I think I've submitted, since we've been on quarantine, I've submitted 2 papers, and I'm working on a third at the moment. And so silver lining, in all the madness happening. But I think, kind of one of the good parts of my career is just that, there is a time when you start, I kind of feel like I'm hitting my stride where it's like, I am being constantly productive, doing a lot of things, have a lot of stuff on my plate, which can sometimes be overwhelming to have so much on your plate, but it's also good because that's what you want. That is, how you build a career. And I think, high point of my career has just been these past 2 years of just, I think, being very productive.
Oh, thank you so much. That's going to help a lot of people starting
Mm-hmm.
here with me.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
If you could do it all over again, what would you
Mm-hmm.
do different?
That's a good question. So one thing I would say about me, I kind of, well, I don't know if it was like, I think I had a lot of good help throughout, undergraduate and graduate and postdoc, and even now, mentors and colleagues at Purdue. Um, what would I do different? To be honest, I would just say because I've had such good help, I don't know what I would do differently, to be honest, if that's not too kind of cliche or something. And just the fact that, I had great mentors. I remember, going back to undergrad, Dr. Bogus told me, I went to a smaller undergraduate institution, and by the time I was eligible, more or less, I had the prerequisites to take the, undergraduate analysis class. They wouldn't have offered it by the time I had graduated, but I wanted to go to graduate school. And so Dr. Bocaris, helped me find, he said, oh, there's, at Montclair State University, there's an undergraduate analysis class. Next semester, you should take that, So even just like things like, where it'd be like, oh, I mean, I just had a lot of good help. So I've had things like that. I've had, you know, my advisor from graduate school, basically, pushing me to get outside of my comfort zone, and I had a nice, great research experience in France when I was in undergrad. My first time leaving the country, it's, scared traveling alone for my first time. So I've had a lot of good help. And I mean, I think the only thing I would say, I mean, I don't know. The only thing I think I could say, just because, once again, not anything me, I think I've had a lot of great help from the different people throughout my career. The only thing I would think I would say is, I hadn't taken a PDE course until I got to graduate school, and that would have helped. That's the only thing I would maybe, just add that in there. I remember our first applied math class. They did separation of variables as if it was like a thing that everybody noticed, like a review. And I'm like, wait a minute, what are we doing here? What is a Fourier series again? So I mean, other than that, take PDEs. That's the only answer I have, just because I've had such good help.
Yes, and PDEs many times are not offered. Sometimes until you get to graduate school, you might touch on them in a differential equation class.
Yeah.
And I love you saying it, because that was my area.
Very nice. Yeah.
That's right. Okay. I think it's our hope that a number of people will eventually watch these interviews. It's my hope that some students who are 12, who are 16, who are 18, some individuals who are just starting college, individuals who are getting ready to finish college might eventually watch some of these interviews, and they might have an interest in a career in mathematics and developing their career in mathematics. And so pick any one of those ages or categories, whether it's a youth, or whether it's somebody at a certain collegiate level, and give them a perspective or some advice in terms of a career in mathematics.
So what I would say, I would give advice to, I would say, people who are finishing up their undergraduate degrees. And I would just say this, I mean, I'm going to give the advice that I got so many years ago at, a Math Alliance, Field of Dreams meeting, is that, getting a degree in mathematics, don't put yourself in a box. you know, there are other things that you can do. And I mean, I put myself in that box. I got a PhD in mathematics and I'm a math professor, right? That's like groundbreaking, you know, PhD gets an academic job. But there are many other things you can do. Just because you like mathematics, don't always think that you have to specifically do one thing or another. Uh, and have an open mind if and when you go to graduate school. The area of mathematics that I study now, I didn't even know was a thing when I was in undergrad. I study inverse problems for PDEs, and I didn't know that, you know, I didn't know that that was a thing. And it's, you know, a very well-known common thing, but just never knew about it, never heard of it before, and now it's like my favorite thing in the world. And so that's one thing I would definitely give them that advice that, you know, one, there are many things that you can do. You know, go to graduate school. If you're going to go to graduate school or whatever you're going to do, just, you know, learn. You're going to learn lots of mathematics. Some of it you're not going to like a lot. Some of it you're going to love a lot. Learn and, you know, figure out what you like. Because you may like one thing. I thought when I went to graduate school, I thought for sure that I really liked modeling, that I really liked starting out with the physical system from first principles and coming up with equations. I don't like that at all. That's, you know, the first project that I got where I really had to model something from like myself, I was like, this is crazy. How am I supposed to do this? And I initially didn't really like analysis when I took it, you know, my first semester when I got to graduate school. And now I'm an analyst. Like half of my papers are in like, you know, the Journal of Applicable Analysis, right? And so, you know, don't put yourself in a box, especially when you're younger, you're just finishing your undergraduate studies, because there's so much you don't know. You know, be open and just, you're going to learn so much, let it happen. And believe me, you will figure out what you like. One day it will click. I remember when I decided that I wanted to study, you know, I said inverse problems for PDEs. I realized that when I took like, you know, my upper level graduate course in elliptic PDEs, right, which is uses a lot of functional analysis, a lot of, you know, big, heavy theory. And I just thought that it was so cool. And it was just something that I had never heard of before. And, you know, now it's, like I said, it's my favorite thing. So, you know, don't put yourself in a box. You're going to learn so much. Just learn, and believe me, from figuring out, you know, learning a lot of different things, you will find something that is right for you. And once you do, just run with it.
Yes, that's a very good point, and you do have to love it. Mathematics is such a big field, and some of the younger individuals just starting out thinks that you have to love it all, know it all. But there are some areas that strike your fancy a lot more than others. And you'll eventually find that. You eventually know that, and it might not remain there all of your life. So a good while you might study this area, and it might vary as you go on in life. I appreciate that comment that as you grow older, that you get wiser, because that should mean that I should be one of the wisest person on earth. But at any rate, you have lots of accolades, and you have degrees with your name on it. I see one in the background that has mathematics on it, and I see it has your name on it as well. But in your mind, could you reflect back and tell us, when was it that you felt like you'd become a mathematician?
That's good. That's a good question. I would say I would say I got a good answer for it. I would say the first kind of paper I ever wrote, for me, that kind of did it. Just because, I mean, there were different points when I'm, you know, you're a mathematician if you study mathematics, right? If you are, you know, actively involved in the study of mathematics. And it's not like I didn't think of myself as a mathematician up until then. But that point when I wrote my first paper, for me, it was like, not only am I actively studying mathematics, I'm contributing, right? I'm not just a consumer of knowledge. I'm now also contributing to knowledge. And that was, for me, was just like such a heavy kind of concept, because throughout, you know, people's entire lives in school, you are trained to consume knowledge. That is what you do for most of your you know, career in school, especially when you're younger, you are a consumer of knowledge. But this idea of actually not only just consuming knowledge, but, you know, actively creating and, you know, giving back and researching something that could be interesting and useful was just, to me, that was just like a really big kind of interesting thing that not only, like I said, not only was I consuming information, I was also creating it. And that was just like mind blowing to me for some reason. And that's when I really felt like, oh my God, like I made it, right? So for me, that's kind of, you know, like I said, you're a mathematician if you, you know, actively study mathematics. But for me, when I went to paper, that to me was just, that would like, you know, fireworks went off. It was just like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this is happening.
And it should have gone on.
Mm.
That's a great answer. Isaac, tell me a little bit, I want to get a little more personal. Tell me a little bit about the community that you came from, what community that you grew up in. And now that you are a professional mathematician, how do you use your mathematics in any way to kind of keep connected with that community?
Yeah, I went to a small high school, you know, New Jersey, in East Orange. So, you know, where I live now in West Lafayette, Indiana, is a lot different than where I grew up in East Orange, New Jersey. You know, and one of the ways I think myself, so it's, you know, it's like worlds apart, you know, where I am now and where I came from. I think one of the things I mainly try to do to, you know, kind of stay grounded is I actively do try to do things like I, you know, take undergraduate students that I do work with over summers. I, you know, you know, doing things like this interview and being actively involved in, you know, recruitment. I do like a lot of the recruitment events. If there's an email about we need some professor to, you know, take an hour out of their day to talk to some, you know, undergrads maybe for something, I will do it. And just because for me, you know, that extreme change that happened throughout my life, going from, you know, nothing bad about Kean University, but I went from Kean University that, you know, didn't offer like PhDs in mathematics to now being at, you know, a top rated, you know, university in School of Mathematics. You know, that didn't just happen, you know, on my, well, not that it didn't happen on my own accord, but, you know, there were people that helped along the way. And one of the ways I try to keep me grounded and keep me connected to the community is trying to, by giving back, right? Is to try to, you know, hopefully, you know, influence someone else, you know, if, you know, by the tiniest fraction that I was. Like I said, you know, I had people all throughout my academic careers and even constantly until today who, you know, helped me. And I think, you know, you have to pay it forward, right? You know, if, you know, someone opens the door for you, you gotta make sure that it stays open. And so, you know, just, you know, doing things like I went back to King University to talk. There was a regional alliance meeting there. It was my first year here, so it's fall of 2018. Yeah, and, you know, I went there and I, you know, talked on the panel and things like that. You know, I try to give back because I understand that, you know, East Orange, New Jersey is a far away from West Lafayette, Indiana, in many different ways, and not just geographical distance. But I understand that my life has been changed immensely by a lot of the people that I've had, and the only thing I can do is to just try and do the same, you know, whatever little bit I can. If that means on a Saturday afternoon giving an interview, I mean, sure, I sit around and talk. That's the least I can do for, I think, a lot of the stuff that people have done for me over the years. And so that's really how I try to stay connected, is just, you know, if a call goes out, you know, for some help, you know, what's an hour out of the day compared to, you know, all of the help that I've gotten throughout my life.
Yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for doing that and for doing this interview in particular. Just a couple more questions here, but this one's a little open-ended. I'd like for you to philosophize on because of the times that we're living in now. But in light of today's climate, social climate in our nation, the death of George Floyd and the discussion, the police brutality that we're having here in America, and you being a professional mathematician, what mathematical formula or how could you use some of your mathematics to model some of this some of the things that's going on now, but pretty much I want you to kind of comment on the social climate of today relative to your having a doctoral degree in mathematics. So somehow talk to me a little bit about the social climate, but throw something in that's mathematical of some nature.
No, I mean, I think I'll tell that I think I have some good ones. And so one of the things, when I did my postdoc at Texas A&M, one of the things that I learned to do was when someone asked me, what do? I used to initially start off by saying, so this is when I was at Texas A&M, I used to initially start off by saying, I work at Texas A&M, and then I would continue to say, I'm a postdoc in mathematics. But I often found out that 9 times out of 10, I would say I work at Texas A&M, and someone would stop me and say, oh, so you play football? And I go, no, I don't. I don't play football at all. Believe me, they do not want me to play football. And I got that more often than I've gotten, times. One time, which, well, I find it funny. It's not funny, but I find it funny that I went to an eye doctor in Texas, and, you're filling out the paperwork, and they ask for your, where do you work in the position? And so that time I didn't ask. I didn't have to tell them. They read it, and they're looking at me, and I'm like, yes, what's going on? Do you need something? And they go, oh, it's just, you work at, you have a PhD. You said you're a postdoc at Texas A&M. And I go, yes, I do. Like, do you want to see a copy or something? I don't know what to tell you. And they said, no. It's just because you look so young. And I said, okay, sure, fine. But then I went to go see my eye doctor, and my eye doctor looked like he was 12. Okay. And so I'm just like, yes, I look young. That's probably why. And I just think, there are lots of things, people thinking that I play football rather than having a PhD in mathematics is by no means the worst thing that's ever happened to anyone, let alone an African American. Not the worst thing that's happened to me myself as an African American. But I think, hopefully it's, with a lot of the, what's happening now. The one thing is that I see now, honest to goodness, change, right? And so, this is something that, as an African American, I've dealt with and I've experienced throughout my whole life. But I will say this is the first time I've ever felt like there is movement in a positive direction, right? That, there are lots of times when similar events have happened and it's just, it seems like it goes in one ear and out the other. But it does seem like now that there is kind of a awakening, that eyes are opening, right? And so it's interesting to see that now from, now it gives me a little bit more hope that, things will always get better, right? It's not like that things are just awful and will never change. But now to see, eyes opening before where, you would not have saw that before, and what you wouldn't have seen, just a year ago today, and like I said, it's not, like I said, being mistaken, me having to like insert the fact that I have a PhD in mathematics into a conversation, or else people think that, I'm at Purdue, I would assume that they would think I play basketball, even though I'm like 5 something. So obviously I would play basketball. Even though that's not the worst thing that happens, but just I think people understand that now a lot of the large systemic problems do come from some of these smaller, seeing someone who looks like me and being confused that like, oh, you're a professor at Purdue. I think people are starting to understand. They're starting to listen to the conversation that's saying that you not understanding or you being confused, that leads to more issues, right? That is, maybe not the biggest problem that the world is facing or that African Americans are facing, but it is definitely adding to a lot of the big issues. And so I would just say, you know, for me, I've had it good for, you know, most, if not my whole life, but I definitely do start to see a change. And that is, you know, something, you know, seeing that change and, you know, from such a tragedy, seeing that there is change happening is, you know, some kind of silver lining. You know, it's sad that the change had to come this way, but, you know, hopefully good comes from it. And it does seem like that is happening in many instances around the country.
Yes, I'm pleased to see the optimism in you,
Mm-hmm.
and I firmly share your thoughts there.
Mm-hmm.
We've had an opportunity to look at Isaac's currently and opportunity to look at Isaac in the past. Let's take a quick look at Isaac in the
Mm-hmm.
future.
Okay.
I don't know, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years now. What would be characterizing Isaac at that point in his eyes? Which direction you think that he would be headed and some things that he would be doing?
Mm-hmm. Ooh, that's a good question. Uh, that's a good question because especially in academia too, before you get tenure, it's all just like I gotta work now. I gotta, you know, gotta get this paper out. So a lot of times it's very focused about the now, so that you can get to the future. Uh,
Yes.
but I do think, like I said, I actually, you know, in the future, you know, uh, definitely, I would even say myself being, you know, I would love to still be, you know, working, you know, at Purdue and being a professor. I do love my job. You know, there are lots of ups and downs, let me tell you, not just from the research aspect, but from all aspects. But I do honestly love my job to the fullest extent. I have no complaints. Well, none that are worth airing. But um, I think in 10 years, I think, you know, one of the things I kind of like I said, I do like all aspects of the job. I do like not only just the research, you know, learning and like I said, you know, creating and not just consuming information, but creating information is you want to continue to do that. But I also like the service and the teaching aspect. And so just, you know, even just things like being more, you know, involved in the, you know, Math Alliance and, you know, working with graduates. I do a lot of, even now I will give talks at, you know, about different research aspects for undergraduates and graduate students and things like that. And I think for me, would to just be doing, I don't know, maybe this is not very inventive of me to say, but to be doing more of the same. I kind of really like my job. I like what I do, all the way from the research to teaching and the service. And for me in the next 10 years, I just hope to be doing that, but just better, to be a better researcher, a better mentor, a better teacher. And that's kind of what I want to be doing in the next 10 years. Like I said, maybe it's not the most inventive answer, but you know, it is what I like to do. And it's, you know, that's what I like to do, especially right now. That's what I like to do. And I am doing it. And for me, what I would like to happen is just to be better at doing the thing that I love.
Hmm. Oh, with no doubt, I think you're going to influence lots and lots of individuals and
Thank
another
you.
great generation of mathematicians. And, you know, and that was the purpose of the alliance. That's what we wanted. And the
Mhm.
fact that I can see this happening right before my eyes is something
Thank you.
that
Thank you.
gives me chills, if you will. We've actually a number of questions, and
Mhm.
I want to make sure that we get around to everything.
Mhm.
What question did I not ask? Um,
Mhm.
what could you add to the conversation that maybe in a direction that we haven't taken you as of yet? So
Mhm.
a few closing comments, if you will.
Any comments? That's good. That's good.
Mhm.
Uh, what would I say? What would my closing kind of remarks be? You know, one of the things I kind of, you know, learned throughout, you know, my, you know, academic career is, I mean, I'm sure we've talked about this, but I think it's often very much needed to hear for, you know, any, you know, people of color, any kind of, you know, minority group in any social, you know, economic or academic situation is that, you know, you do belong there and you know, you may have to fight a little bit harder, right? And, you know, is that fair? Obviously not. But believe me, you can do it, is what I would say. You know, that's something, you know, I often look back on, you know, like I said, going back to the question that you probably asked at the Math Alliance, right? Like, were there any times that were really hard? I didn't think you would get through graduate school. And it's like, okay, well, there were multiple of those. But even one of them for me was just like I said, I hadn't taken a PDE course before I got to graduate school. And it seemed like everybody else in my first year class in graduate school did, you know? And so that really put me down. It was like, you know, all of these people are ready. They are here. They are prepared, you know, and I'm not. And I just want to say, you can't think like that. You do just have to put in the time and effort. And believe me, I would just tell, you know, anyone who's watching, it will come through. I remember, you know, going from my first year in graduate school where it was long nights every day and working weekends all the time. Then I remember toward the end of my graduate school career, you know, my mother would say, you know, when she would call and we would talk on the weekend, she'd be like, you know, half or 3/4 of the time when she would call and I'd be in the office on the weekend. And by the end of my graduate school career, she's like, wow, you know, I've called you like, you know, 4 or 5 weekends in a row and you're at home, right? And, you know, they're just like mind blowing to her. And here's the thing about it. You will have to do that hard work. You know, and it's, you know, it's like, oh, you know, there's going to be a lot of hard work. It's going to be a lot of long nights. It won't feel that way, especially if you like what you're doing. Because when I heard that, it was like, oh yeah, you used to be in the office every weekend and now you're not. Like, I didn't even realize that. It wasn't even to me like, you know, after a while I was like, oh good, I get to have some time on the week. It will go by very fast. It will go by very quickly. And, you know, don't be hard on yourself if you have to put in that extra time, you know, because other people probably have to put in that extra time too for other things. And, you know, no one just likes to talk about it. No one likes to talk about not passing their linear algebra qualifying exam the first time around, right? People don't want to talk about it. And, you know, things will happen and you have to stick to it. It'll be long and hard, but if you like what you're doing, like I said, it will go by and you won't even, like, things will start to click. You know, you won't have to be in the office every weekend anymore and you won't even notice. You won't even notice, you know, all that time you spent. It will just be like, you know, it'll just be something that happened and you will get through it. It'll be totally fine.
That's just great. You know, as we said, mathematics is a great, big, large field. And, you know, I've always felt like it's no parts of it that I couldn't conquer if I put in the time. And so it's just a matter of whether or not I wanted to put in the time. And of course, we put in the time in the area that we love.
Yeah.
And all that is part of the discipline as well. You're going to be a great mentor for lots and lots of folk. You're the epitome
I appreciate that.
of what we had designed the Alliance for, and we certainly thank you for taking the time to do this particular interview.
Oh, of course.
And I'm going to follow your career and just kind of watch you get at the top. And remember now, when you get to be a billionaire, don't forget about us.
Fair enough.
Okay. Thank you so very, very much. And
I appreciate it. And
see you.
Yeah. And I'd say thanks for all the work that you've done on the Math Alliance. I mean, like you said, I mean, you can see it happen. I mean, it has made a difference. I'm sure it has made a difference in many people's lives, but mine in particularly. So, you know, definitely everything that the Alliance stands for is it's working. I would say it's working. I mean, it's worked for me. I can only speak for myself, but I'm sure that I speak for many.
Yes, and you used the word a little earlier, pay forward.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay, well, you have a good rest of your afternoon, and we'll look forward to talking with you in the future.
All righty. Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.